The story opens at the Intergalactic Peace Conference, a grand event held at the heart of the Galactic Council's central station, a vast structure floating in deep space, far from any planetary systems. Representatives from hundreds of advanced civilizations gather, all here to ensure the tenuous peace that has kept the galaxy from descending into chaos. The Galactic Council, a governing body formed centuries ago to manage relations between species, operates under the belief that conflict, while sometimes necessary, should always be controlled. For most of the galaxy's inhabitants, war is a natural state, a part of existence. Yet one species stands apart in this mindset: humans. Humanity, newcomers to the galactic stage, has only been part of the Council for a few decades. Their rapid rise through the ranks of space-faring civilizations is well documented, and they're known for their ingenuity, adaptability, and strangely, their aversion to war. To the more battle-hardened species of the galaxy, this peaceful nature is puzzling, if not outright suspicious. Commander Jason Pierce, the human military envoy at the conference, is attending to represent Earth's interests. He is a calm, disciplined officer, chosen for his diplomatic skills and his ability to navigate the tricky waters of interspecies relations. Everything seems routine until tragedy strikes. In the middle of the night, the peace conference is shaken to its core when a high-ranking Z-Car diplomat is found dead in their quarters. The Z-Car are a proud, warrior race that views conflict as the highest form of honor, so the murder of one of their most respected leaders is seen as a direct insult. Even more shocking is the method of the murder: strangulation, a brutal and archaic technique rarely seen in the galaxy. The Z-Car, and many other species, favor energy weapons or advanced biological methods for assassination. Strangulation feels primitive, something straight out of ancient history. Almost immediately, suspicions turn to the humans. After all, strangulation is a distinctly human method of killing. Security footage from the station shows Commander Pierce entering the diplomat's room shortly before the time of death. No one saw him leave. The evidence seems overwhelming, and within hours, Pierce is arrested. The Galactic Council is stunned. Could humanity, the species that claimed to be averse to violence, actually be hiding a darker nature? As Pierce is taken into custody, whispers ripple through the conference halls. Humans, one council member mutters, are they really afraid of war? Or have they been hiding their true nature all along? Commander Jason Pierce sat in a cold, metallic cell aboard the Galactic Council's central station. The weight of the accusations against him hung heavy in the air. His eyes were focused, yet filled with disbelief. How had he, a loyal officer of Earth, become the prime suspect in a crime that threatened not just his life but humanity's very standing in the galaxy? Outside the cell, the Galactic Council prepared for what would be one of the most highly scrutinized trials in its history. The stakes were enormous. This was not just a murder investigation. This was about the nature of humanity itself. In the days following the Z-Car diplomat's murder, the Council convened an emergency session to discuss the case. The Z-Car were furious, calling for immediate retaliation against Earth. To murder one of our own is to declare war. Their ambassador roared during the assembly. Other species, while less overtly aggressive, watched with a mix of suspicion and unease. After all, the footage showed Pierce entering the victim's room, and the method of death, strangulation, was undeniably human. For a species that had long claimed to be peaceful, this was a damning revelation. The council members wondered, could this incident reveal a hidden side to humanity, one they had tried to suppress? Dr. Emily Tate, Pierce's defense attorney and one of Earth's top legal minds, knew she had an uphill battle. She was summoned from Earth within hours of the arrest, and as soon as she stepped into the Galactic Council chambers, she felt the tension in the air. The eyes of 100 different species bore down on her, each one wondering whether humanity could be trusted. But Tate was undeterred. She had faced impossible odds before, and if anyone could uncover the truth, it was her. The trial began with the prosecutor, a tall, sleek alien from the Relock species laying out the evidence. He moved with fluid grace, his glowing green eyes narrowing as he detailed the damning facts Pierce had entered the Z-Car diplomat's quarters late at night. Security footage showed no one else in the vicinity. The method of death was unmistakably human, and the Z-Car diplomat had been vocal about his distrust of humanity in recent council meetings. The motive is clear, the prosecutor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The humans wanted to silence opposition, to eliminate a potential threat before the negotiations could even begin. Dr. Tate listened carefully, her mind racing through the possible defense strategies. When her turn to speak came, she approached the council with a calm but firm demeanor. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Galactic Council," she began, "we cannot ignore the evidence, but neither can we jump to conclusions. Humanity, as you all know, has worked tirelessly to maintain peace in this galaxy. Commander Pierce is a decorated officer with an impeccable record. Why would he jeopardize everything we've built with such a reckless act?" The council members remained silent, but Tate could see the skepticism in their eyes. She knew she needed more than just Pierce's clean record to sway them. That's when she introduced the idea that the murder might be part of something larger. "We've recently discovered communications between the Z-Car diplomat and certain underground factions," she revealed. "These factions have long sought to destabilize the council. It's possible that the diplomat was not killed by a human, but by those who wanted to frame us to ignite a conflict between Earth and the Z-Car." This revelation sent murmurs through the chamber. Could it be true? Could the murder have been a setup? Tate pressed on. "We have no motive. Humanity gains nothing from this crime. In fact, we stand to lose everything. But others may benefit from seeing us embroiled in war." Despite her compelling argument, the evidence was still strong against Pierce. The footage, the method, the opportunity, it all pointed to him. The Z-Car delegation, especially, was unconvinced. They viewed any attempt to cast doubt on their diplomat's loyalty as an insult to their honor. The prosecutor, sensing that Tate's argument had left an impression, shifted the focus back to the incriminating evidence. He showed the security footage again, emphasizing Pierce's presence at the scene. But Tate wasn't finished. She requested a detailed analysis of the footage, something the prosecution had conveniently overlooked. With the help of a human technical expert, she showed the council that the footage had been tampered with. Small glitches in the timestamp indicated that a few minutes had been erased from the recording. It wasn't much, but it was enough to raise doubts. What happened in those missing minutes, Tate asked the council. Who entered the diplomat's room during that gap? The discovery was a turning point, but it was only the beginning. Tate knew that proving Pierce's innocence wasn't enough. She had to expose the true culprit. She requested more time to investigate the underground factions she believed were behind the murder, but the Z-Car were growing impatient. "Our leader is dead, and you want us to wait for more human tricks," their ambassador spat. The council agreed to a short delay, but tensions were at an all-time high. With every passing hour, the threat of war loomed larger. Commander Pierce's life and the fate of humanity hung in the balance as Dr. Tate raced to uncover the truth before it was too late. Dr. Emily Tate's investigation into the murder of the Z-Car diplomat was gaining momentum, but with each new revelation, the stakes only grew higher. The missing minutes from the security footage had opened up a crucial line of inquiry, and now the Galactic Council's focus was split. On one side were those eager to believe that Pierce was innocent, and on the other, the increasingly aggressive Z-Car who demanded swift justice. But for Tate, the real challenge was lurking in the shadows, where a far more dangerous game was being played. Tate had stumbled upon encrypted communications between the Z-Car diplomat and a mysterious group known as the Collective. Mention of this group was rare, and there were only whispers about their activities, but their influence had long been suspected in key galactic events, coups, revolutions, and even full-scale wars. The Collective was rumored to operate in the darkest corners of the galaxy. manipulating entire civilizations to serve their own hidden agenda. Most galactic species dismissed these rumors as mere conspiracy theories, but Tate could sense there was truth behind the tales. If the collective was involved, this was no ordinary murder. It was the prelude to something much larger and more sinister. Tate's investigations led her to an off-the-grid contact deep in the underbelly of the galactic black market. This figure, known only as the Cipher, had access to secret information about the collective's activities. Meeting with the Cipher was risky, as they were known for selling information to the highest bidder, and their loyalties were always in question. Nevertheless, Tate knew she had no choice. The meeting took place in a hidden corner of a space station frequented by smugglers and outlaws. The Cipher, a heavily cloaked alien with multiple cybernetic enhancements, handed Tate a small data chip. "This will lead you to what you're looking for," the Cipher said, their voice a strange mix of mechanical and organic tones. "But be careful. The collective sees everything." What Tate found on the data chip sent a chill down her spine. It contained communications between several high-ranking council members and the collective, discussing not only the murder of the Z-Car diplomat, but a broader plan to destabilize the council itself. The goal: to ignite a new galactic war. The data revealed that the collective believed the current peace was weakening the galaxy, making its civilizations too complacent. War, in their twisted view, was a necessary force of evolution. Only through conflict could species grow stronger. And humanity, with its reputation for peace, was their perfect scapegoat. The Z-Car diplomat had been in talks with the collective, but he was beginning to have doubts about their plan. His murder was not an act of human aggression, but a move by the collective to eliminate a potential loose end and frame humanity for the crime. This revelation was explosive, but there was a problem. Tate needed more proof. The messages were encrypted with layers of protection that made it impossible to trace them back to specific individuals. Without a clear connection to a council member, the evidence could be dismissed as hearsay or even fabrication. Tate's suspicions, however, pointed in one direction. Councillor Varix of the Escal species, a long-respected leader known for his commitment to diplomacy and order. But beneath his polished exterior, there had always been whispers that Varix harbored more extreme views, especially when it came to maintaining the council's power. The data suggested that Varix was working with the collective, pulling the strings behind the scenes to create chaos that would allow him to consolidate more power. Determined to expose Varix, Tate sought help from an unlikely ally, an inside source within the Escal government who had long suspected Varix's dealings with less than savory factions. This source, an intelligence officer named Kalak, agreed to provide her with the information she needed. Kalak was risking everything, knowing that if Varix discovered his betrayal, it would mean certain death. But he, too, had grown wary of the collective's growing influence. With Kalak's help, Tate gained access to Varix's private communications, where she found undeniable proof linking him to the collective and the conspiracy to frame humanity. Varix had been coordinating with the collective for years, carefully orchestrating events to push the galaxy closer to war. The Z-Car diplomat's murder had been the final piece of the puzzle, a high-profile death to spark outrage and set the stage for galactic conflict. As Tate compiled the evidence, she knew the danger was far from over. The collective wouldn't sit idly by while their plans unraveled. They had eyes and ears everywhere, and if they realized how close she was to exposing them, they would stop at nothing to silence her. Time was running out, and the risk of a galactic war was greater than ever. She had to act quickly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that every move she made was being watched. The chapter ends with Tate preparing to present her findings to the council, knowing that her next steps would determine not only Pierce's fate, but the future of humanity and the entire galaxy. Yet, as she moved forward, she couldn't help but wonder, had she uncovered the whole truth, or were there still deeper layers to the collective's insidious plan? The clock was ticking, and any misstep could lead to devastating consequences. As the trial of Commander Jason Pierce resumed, tensions reached a fever pitch. The Galactic Council chambers were filled with a palpable sense of anticipation, with every species in attendance awaiting the defense's next move. Dr. Emily Tate had managed to uncover the conspiracy linking Counselor Varix and the collective to the murder of the Zekar diplomat, but she knew that proving Pierce's innocence required more than just exposing the true culprits. The Galactic Council had been rattled to its core by the implication that humans, despite their claims of peacefulness, were capable of such primitive and violent acts. To clear Pierce's name, Tate would need to address the one question that had haunted the trial from the start: why were humans so afraid of war? The answer lay in the depths of the human psyche, a subject that had been studied and misunderstood by countless species since humanity's introduction to the galactic stage. Tate stood before the council, her gaze steady as she began her defense with a bold assertion. "It's true," she said, her voice firm yet empathetic. "Humans are afraid of war, but not in the way you think." A murmur rippled through the room. For many of the galaxy's species, fear was an emotion tied to weakness, something to be suppressed or overcome. But for humans, fear had a different meaning. Tate continued, explaining that humanity's fear of war wasn't a fear of violence itself, but a fear of the consequences of the devastation, the loss, the irreversible damage that conflict left behind. Humanity had been shaped by its history of war, from the brutal conflicts that nearly wiped them out on Earth to the many lessons learned in the aftermath. "War is not alien to us," Tate said. "In fact, war has been a defining part of our past. But what makes humanity different is that we've seen the worst of it, and we've chosen to avoid it whenever possible." As Tate spoke, she revealed a series of archived recordings from Earth's darkest times, images of scorched battlefields, cities reduced to rubble, and the haunting aftermath of nuclear war. The footage showed the cost of unchecked conflict, not only in terms of physical destruction but in the toll it took on the human spirit. "Our fear isn't of battle," Tate explained. "It's of losing ourselves, of becoming something we can't come back from." The room fell silent. Even the Zekar delegation, so accustomed to viewing war as a source of honor, watched with somber expressions as the brutal reality of Earth's past unfolded on the screens. It was a history of survival, but also one of deep reflection. The footage showed humanity's commitment to diplomacy, its efforts to create systems of governance that could prevent future wars. Tate pointed out the human invention of international laws and peace treaties, mechanisms that were rare in the galaxy where conflict often resolved itself through violence or domination. "We've learned that war isn't the solution," she said. "It's the problem." Tate knew she was walking a fine line. While she needed to demonstrate immersion to war, she also had to avoid portraying them as weak or unwilling to defend themselves. So she pivoted, highlighting humanity's resilience. "Make no mistake," she said, "we are capable of fighting. But we only fight when we have no other choice, and even then we fight not for glory but for survival." To strengthen her point, Tate introduced testimonies from various human veterans, individuals who had served in Earth's last major interstellar conflict, a skirmish with a rogue faction of space pirates. Their words echoed humanity's complicated relationship with war. One soldier, in a recorded message, spoke of the unbearable weight of taking lives, while another recounted the horrors of watching comrades fall in battle. "We don't romanticize war like some species do," one of the veterans said. "We don't see it as a path to honor or strength. We see it as a failure of everything else." As Tate's argument unfolded, the members of the Galactic Council began to see the humans in a different light. What had once seemed like cowardice and aversion to war now appeared as wisdom earned through suffering. The Zekar, who had always viewed combat as a proving ground for honor, struggled to understand why anyone would fear it. But they could not ignore the weight of human history, which showed that for every battle won, there were 100 lives shattered. Yet Tate wasn't finished. She had saved her most surprising revelation for last. In her final remarks, she revealed that Commander Pierce had a direct connection to the painful history of humanity's past. His own great-grandfather had been a general during Earth's most devastating war, the conflict that had nearly wiped out half the planet's population. The general, who had been hailed as a hero, had lived long enough to see the aftermath of his victories, ruined cities, broken families, and a generation scarred by trauma. His experiences had shaped Pierce's worldview, instilling in him the belief that peace must always come before conflict. This personal connection to humanity's history added another layer to Pierce's defense. He was not just a soldier, he was a man carrying the weight of his ancestors' mistakes. Pierce, like many humans, fears war not because he is weak, Tate concluded, but because he knows the true cost of it. The chapter ends with the council in deep thought, their perception of humanity forever altered. But as the trial moved into its final phase, one question still remained. Would this understanding of the human psyche be enough to stop the war that had been set in motion? The final chapter of the trial was upon them. Dr. Emily Tate had laid out her defense meticulously, revealing not only the conspiracy that had framed Commander Pierce but also the deeper truth about humanity's relationship with war. The Galactic Council had been shaken by her revelations, but the case was far from closed. Tensions between species, especially the Z-Car, were running dangerously high, and the looming threat of a galactic conflict still hung in the air like a dark cloud. Now it was time to unravel the truth completely, and Tate knew that everything hinged on what she had left to present. As the council reconvened, there was a somber silence in the massive chamber. Representatives from countless civilizations sat waiting for the final pieces of the puzzle to be revealed. Tate could feel the weight of their collective gaze as she took the floor once more. Her voice was calm, but inside she knew this was her last chance to prove Commander Pierce's innocence beyond any doubt. Members of the council, Tate began, her voice echoing across the vast room. We've established that Commander Pierce has been framed. We've shown evidence that suggests a conspiracy far larger than this single incident. But what I'm about to present will not only clear Commander Pierce's name, but will also reveal the full extent of the plot that has been unfolding right under our noses. Tate stepped aside as a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. On it, she began showing a series of encrypted messages intercepted by her contact, Kalak, from within the Eskal government. These messages had been exchanged between Counselor Varix and members of the collective, discussing their plans in chilling detail. The goal was not just to frame humanity, but to spark a war that would destabilize the entire Galactic Council. Varix had been working with the collective to ensure that key species would turn against one another, creating a power vacuum that he and his allies could exploit. The council members sat in stunned silence as the messages were displayed. The plans revealed Varix's hand in manipulating various conflicts over the past decade, from subtle diplomatic rifts to outright rage. Every move had been designed to weaken the Council's unity, culminating in the murder of the Z-Car diplomat, an act that would trigger a galactic war, with humanity set up as the perfect scapegoat. Z-Car Dilation in particular was seething. Their warrior pride had been wounded, and they had been manipulated into calling for blood over a murder that was never what it seemed. Counselor Varix knew exactly how we would react, Tate said, turning to the Z-Car. He used your anger, your honor against you, but this is not just about the Z-Car or the humans. This conspiracy is about power. Varix and the collective have been pulling the strings, hoping that once we were all at each other's throats, they could rise to the top. As Tate spoke, the gravity of the situation became clear to everyone in the room. Varix, who had sat quietly during most of the trial, now stood up, his reptilian eyes narrowing in fury. This is nonsense, he hissed. Fabrications and lies. You have no solid proof that connects me to this supposed collective. But Tate had anticipated his denial. With a nod to her assistant, the holographic display shifted to show financial records, secret communications, and the digital trail Varix had tried so hard to erase. One by one, the damning pieces of evidence were revealed, showing that Varix had not only been in contact with the collective, but had also funneled resources to them through a network of shell corporations. It was all there in black and white proof that Varix had orchestrated the diplomat's murder and sought to ignite a war for his own gain. The chamber erupted into chaos as council members from various species demanded answers. Some called for Varix's immediate arrest, while others argued over how deeply the collective's influence had spread. Varix, realizing his position was collapsing, made a desperate attempt to flee the chamber, but galactic security was already moving, and within seconds they had him restrained. With Varix in custody, the tide began to turn. The Z-Car ambassador, though visibly enraged at having been manipulated, stepped forward. "So we were wrong to accuse the humans so quickly," he admitted, his voice strained with the weight of his pride. "So we will not allow our honor to be further tainted by war over a lie. Humanity is innocent in this." Tate breathed a sigh of relief, though she knew the road ahead would still be difficult. The threat of war had been averted, but the cracks within the Galactic Council remained. The collective, though exposed, was still out there lurking in the shadows, waiting for another opportunity to strike. But for now, the immediate danger had passed. Pierce's name was cleared, and Earth's place in the galactic community was secure. As the trial came to a close, Commander Pierce was released from custody. He stood before the council, humbled but grateful, his reputation restored. "Thank you," he said simply to Dr. Tate, "not just for saving me, but for showing the galaxy what we stand for." Tate smiled, knowing that this victory was just one battle in a much larger war against the forces of deception and manipulation. But for today, peace had been preserved and the truth had won out. The galaxy once again teetered on the edge of chaos, but thanks to the efforts of a few brave individuals, it had been pulled back from the brink.